Would you ever run across South America?
I was injured on day one.
Climb the 7 summits.
The whole curtain of rock basically started coming down the mountain.
Trek across Antarctica.
Unbelievable experience, pushing to the absolute limit. I'm at my limit right now.
Or row across the Atlantic Ocean.
We were hit by 2 hurricanes, and 3 tropical storms.
Big Life is about exploring unique and untouched landscapes, pushing your physical boundaries and testing the limits of danger. Find out what it takes to be an adventure seeker, risk taker, and a high achiever only on Big Life. What drives people to explore? From the first global explorers to more recent adventurers, the vast landscapes of our world have always enticed people to push their boundaries, mentally, physically, and emotionally. But how far can you push, or should you push yourself, to experience some of life's biggest adventures? Next on Big Life, meet a few fascinating people who have turned their passion for exploring into a way of life.
Oh, big one, look at that!
George Kourounis is a global explorer, adventurer, and storm chaser. He's been chasing tornadoes and storms for over 15 years. George is all about pushing his limits. But the key is knowing when the chase is just too dangerous.
Go! Now that was worth the trek up here. Basically, it's my job to go to the most dangerous and extreme places on Earth, document them, and then show people what I have seen. That's what I do. That's my job. My office is Mother Nature. Ever since I was a kid, I always had an interest in science and nature, and then as I got older, it sort of developed further into an interest in travel, photography, adventure, exploration. And being a storm chaser has allowed me to combine all those things that I love into basically one amazing career.
The impact sound of these hailstones is unbelievably deafening.
Some of the crazy places that I travel all over the world include driving up to tornadoes, flying into the eye of a hurricane, and even sometimes crawling into the crater of an erupting volcano. I do these things because I love nature. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I don't jump off of cliffs. I don't throw myself out of airplanes every weekend, but I do like to see Mother Nature up close and personal when she's at her most extreme. The region of the central United States that encompasses Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and some of the Dakotas, it's Tornado Alley. That's where most of the tornadoes in the world occur. Up to 800 to 1,000 tornadoes touch down in the central US every year. Most of the time you don't hear about them because most of them touch down in farmers' fields. But if there's one touching down, usually I'm not too far away.
Oh boy, craziness.
A typical day of storm chasing starts with the morning forecast. We have to try and figure out where the tornadoes are going to be, if there's going to be any, sometimes hours or even days in advance. So we have to be very studied in meteorology. So we'll pull up maps, figure out the computer models, and try and decide where we have to go that day. Then we'll continue driving in that direction. Throughout the day, we'll modify our forecast, try and narrow that position down from millions of square kilometers down to a point that might be a mile wide. Once we get into position, usually the storms fire up about 5 or 6 in the afternoon. That's the witching hour. That's when we know the storms are either going to fire or not. And if they do, it's time to put the pedal to the metal and get up close. Navigating around a storm is not easy. You have to find the safe spots, stay out of the giant hail, which can be to the size of baseballs or larger, and get in a position where you're going to be able to see a tornado and not get hit by it.
This is really close. Oh man!
Just this past tornado season, we had this amazing encounter in South Dakota. A large tornado touched down out in an open field, just the way we like it, not affecting anyone. And we watched this thing for almost an hour as it got larger, changed shape, morphed into all these different sizes. This tornado approached this small farmhouse and crossed the road just behind this oblivious driver that was coming the other way and just missed getting creamed by this tornado. I was trying to alert him, had no idea what was going on. Either he was completely oblivious or had to change his pants shortly after. When a tornado was touching down in an open field, it's a beautiful spectacle to behold. But when it hits a town, that's when it really becomes a natural disaster as opposed to a naturally occurring event. And I've seen destruction that has been almost indescribable. Entire towns wiped off the map, one house destroyed while the house beside it remains untouched. It's just mind-boggling what's happening in that chaotic frenzy of a tornado. The most difficult part emotionally of storm chasing is seeing people lose everything and sometimes even lose their lives. When we're chasing a storm, if it hits a town and there's someone who needs help, that's it. We call off the chase and lend help immediately. We're all trained in first aid, and basically that becomes the priority at that moment. Of all the places I travel to and all the phenomena that I get to see all over the world, the most spectacular and the most unique has to be the Nika Crystal Cave in central Mexico. This cave was only discovered 10 years ago, accidentally, by a group of miners. There's a silver mine in central Mexico in Chihuahua, and they were drilling away, and one day they broke into this chamber 900 feet underground, and what they discovered was something that no human eyes had ever seen before. A chamber about the size of a basketball court containing the world's largest crystals. And when I say large, I mean huge. Some of them were 10 meters long, 55 tons, so big that you can't put your arms around them. No one had ever seen anything like this. The environment inside is as deadly and dangerous as it is beautiful. The magma chamber that heated the water that created these crystals also creates an air temperature inside the cave that's 52 degrees Celsius with almost 100% humidity. That combines the heat of the Sahara Desert in the summer with the humidity of the Amazon jungle. Survival inside this cave is impossible for more than about 15 or 20 minutes at a time. When I first went there, I went inside the cave and could only stand it for 12 minutes, unprotected. I was starting to exhibit heat stroke and had to get out immediately.
It's stifling.
To explore the cave in depth, I actually had to wear a special cooling suit. The bottom layer of the suit was a vest that was filled with ice packs to keep my body core temperature cool. Over top of that was this orange coveralls to protect me from the sharp edges of the crystal. And then on my back, I had a backpack with ice canisters and an electric fan inside that would blow cool air over the ice canisters up to a hose and then to a fighter pilot's type mask. And that would help me to breathe chilled air and to cool off my eyes so my eyes didn't get scorched inside the cave. And even with all the protective equipment, I could only stand it in there 30 to 40 minutes maximum at a time. It was spectacular. Imagine Superman's Fortress of Solitude. It's so difficult in the cave to get around because you're scrambling over these crystals. The heat and humidity is so intense and oppressive. Literally, as soon as you walk in the cave, you start to die. Your body is incapable of shedding the heat. You are sweating, but the sweat doesn't evaporate because the humidity is so high. So eventually, if you remain, your organs will overheat and fail, and you will die. So you're on borrowed time from the minute you walk into that cave. But by far, the most spectacular, amazing place I have ever seen. The name of the game is risk management for me. I'm always trying to get close, but not too close, get an amazing shot, but not get killed. You have to mitigate the risk. There's always a certain amount of risk, and I have to learn a lot about the phenomena that I'm pursuing in order to minimize that risk. As a storm chaser, I've seen nature do things that most people have not. And because of that, and because of my experience, I feel that I have a respect for Mother Nature that is earned, deserved. In the grand scheme of things, we are so small, and it only takes a moment. As anyone has seen a disaster on the news, we know that life can change in an instant. Mother Nature, I don't see her as an opponent. I don't see her as a quarry, as something I'm hunting. I see it as my partner. Mother Nature is my co-pilot as I'm trying to document these different things. And we work hand in hand. And there are days when she cooperates with me, and there are days when she doesn't. And I really want to stay off of her naughty list, so to speak.
Coming up next, we'll meet another explorer who is very familiar with extreme adventures and death-defying places. Living the big life is all about finding your limits and then pushing past them. It's about fulfilling your true passions in life, and no one knows this better than Kevin Vallely. As a family man and an architect, holding down a regular life is in great contrast to his other, more risky pastimes. Kevin and his team have accomplished many incredible feats, from trekking across the frigid wastelands of the South Pole to running coast to coast across South America, each time taking carefully calculated risks through each of their adventures.
The Chilean police are going to allow us and escort us through this abandoned tunnel. So cool.
First adventure I ever did was skiing across Alaska's 1,860-kilometer Iditarod Trail. It's the first time anyone ever skied it. Myself and two teammates did that, and it opened my eyes to adventure. Beyond that, I've went to the jungles of Sumatra, and I followed jungle patrollers there atop huge Asian elephants after poachers and illegal loggers. Went to Java, Indonesia, attempting to summit all its 10,000-foot volcanoes, sadly coinciding with 9/11. So I was in the midst of a jihad without realizing it, and ultimately in the end was forced out because people were threatening my life. And that really opened my eyes to things that can potentially go wrong on expeditions. South Pole Quest was my inaugural expedition with I2P. Myself, Ray Zahab, and Richard Weber would ski to the South Pole. Our intent was to share it with thousands of school kids across North America, somehow from the ice of Antarctica. And in doing so, we secretly had this ambition of breaking the world record in getting there. It was an amazing expedition, and we did share it, and so many people followed, and so many kids were inspired, and every night we would be answering questions via our email and setting up, voice blogs, all thanks to satellite technology. And it really proved to us the sort of magnitude of what you can do as sort of an I2P expedition, and it really sort of jump-started these extreme expeditions that Ray and I have been embarking on subsequently. Traversing Antarctica is really a unique environment. There's no life out there. You're basically dropped down at the edge of the continent on the sea ice, and then the plane buzzes away, and it's, see you guys, we'll see you at the pole. And it's 1,130 kilometers across arguably the most barren terrain on Earth to get to the South Pole Station. It's very intimidating psychologically knowing there is no life. The only life in Antarctica is on the periphery. Obviously there's, sea life. Nothing else. On the continent itself, it's a big slab of ice, and the only life is a half-inch insect that lives on some distant peak that was blown there, in theory, and eats bacteria. There's nothing else. So we were really the only 3 beating hearts crossing that continent. Very unique experience that I feel very fortunate to have had. Not a lot of people can be in a position knowing that, wow, there's nobody. And maybe a good thing too, because we had been stuck in the same underwear for actually 2 months, so maybe it was good there was no one else around. At the edge of the continent, the ice cap bends and breaks as it enters the sea, and there's crevasses. And these are like bottomless abysses in the glacier. And there's snow bridges across them, bridges of snow that you traverse, yet the hole is bottomless. So you cross these things, hoping that bridge don't break. We would go, and sometimes you'd be crossing them, and they'd be as wide as a street, some of them. And you'd be going, and your pole would puncture through, and you'd see this little black hole looking down, and knowing that the bridge is this thick, and you're on it, thinking light thoughts. And if it went, you were going into the abyss, never to be seen again. So yeah, we had some serious issues in the first few days. We were very tense. We got through that, and then it became more just the struggle to get there with very cold temperatures and very high winds. The trip for us was 33 days, 23 hours and 55 minutes, just 5 minutes short of 34 days. The previous record had been 39 and a half days, I believe. So we were 6 or 7 days faster than the previous mark, which was amazing. Like, we were absolutely stunned by that, but that wasn't our objective. Breaking the world record was a really nice thing to boot, but it was just being out there and actually sharing the experience was the most amazing part of all.
Unbelievable experience, pushing to the absolute limit. I'm at my limit right now. It's completely messed up.
Two years ago, Ray Zahab and I, after breaking a world record to the South Pole, decided we wanted another major I2P trek. And this trek was trying to traverse Lake Baikal in Siberia. Now, Lake Baikal, it's a frozen lake in wintertime. It holds the most world in a single place. It holds actually 20% of the world's fresh water in this one lake itself. It's over a mile deep, deepest lake in the world. And we thought it'd be an amazing idea to try to traverse this lake. Fastest time ever had been 21 days, I believe, and we succeeded in doing it in 13 days. So we took our, fast expeditionary style to this lake, hauling sleds, fully unsupported, in arguably among the nastiest conditions out there. Lake Baikal is extremely cold in Siberia in February, March, minus 40 degrees, high winds, fully exposed. There was a lot of challenges, and weather was primary, as in temperatures, wind conditions. The wind would be so strong at some points that it would actually blow our sled from behind us to be in front of us, if you can imagine that, as we're moving forward. It was really tough, and we were completely out there. And that's one of the psychological components of a unsupported expedition, is that if something goes wrong, there's no one to take care of you. You've got to take care of yourself. So you're always aware of that. When you're being hit by huge storms, when you're dealing with outrageously cold temperatures, you're always conscious of that.
It's pretty serious then. I went outside and nearly died.
It's glare ice, a lot of it, and it's very disconcerting when you're on it because it looks like you don't even know how thick the ice is. But it's glare ice for huge sections. So we had crampon underfoot with literally running shoes of sorts. In the end, we averaged over 50 kilometers a day. It's easy to run when it's that cold because it's the only thing that keeps you warm, you see. When it's minus 40 and you get up in the morning, being in a tent, it's miserable. So you get out there and you're cold, you're always cold, and you sort of bundle up, you get your sled going, and then you start to run. And it's like, wow, I'm starting to feel warm. It's the only time I felt warm all day. You just do it, you keep moving. And obviously, as you're confronted with difficult conditions and jumbled ice, you trek over it and move your way through. But when we had good conditions, we would run and hauling sleds. It was pretty amazing. I've done a lot of adventures. My most recent was running across South America, up and over the Andes, attempting to run over an ultramarathon a day, every day, as I crossed South America. The intent was to run our journey from the Pacific coast in Chile, up and over the Andes to Buenos Aires on the Atlantic coast. And a journey of roughly 1,500 kilometers, attempting to run anywhere from 70 to 100 kilometers per day. Amazing trip, amazingly challenging, and for me, an eye-opening one because I ended up getting injured and have to deal with an injury as I went through the trip.
Just a sharp pain and a pop in the arch of my foot.
On day one, at the 45-kilometer part of day one mark, I got a really bad foot injury. My plantar fascia, the arch of my foot, had a jabbing pain, and I had to stop. And we stopped for the day, sort of recouped. And it was a very serious injury, in fact, one that I was quite certain I was not going to be able to continue with. The next day I attempted to continue on, and I made it 30 kilometers. And finally the injury went into my Achilles, and I got to a point and I said, I'm not going to injure myself here permanently trying to do something to inspire others to be physically challenged and to do their thing. So I said, I'm going to back off here, but I'm not going to quit. We were a supported expedition, meaning we had camps each day, we had drivers, we had vehicles. I had the ability to be able to step out and then reintroduce myself through the expedition. And from that point forwards, it went from being the next day, I ended up doing 35 kilometers through the Andes. And I slowly built it up to being 40 kilometers a day, 50 kilometers a day, even 60 kilometers per day. And all through this time, Ray was running continuously. And he worked himself up to one day, he did 100 kilometers in one day. So it was a really interesting expedition. I would describe myself as probably being quite driven, focused on what I want to do, but also someone who chooses to do the things he wants to do. And I guess I'm not following the normal path people take in some respects. Anyone who defines himself as an adventurer probably isn't following that path, because they're pursuing things they really want to do themselves. That's the one thing I love about my life, is that I just want to do the things I want to do. Life's too short to be doing things that other people want you to be doing. So I describe myself as someone who's maybe seizing the day and living life to the most.
Big Life continues after the break with a look at the ultimate risk takers. A young couple's quest to complete a full circumnavigation of the world only on human power. Every young couple must face new challenges before a marriage. But newly engaged Colin and Julie's trials are a bit more risky and extreme than most. After Colin circumnavigated half the world on human power, Julie is set to join him on a 5-month trip, rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Can this couple survive the physical demands of the journey, the unexpected hurricanes, and each other?
We're almost at 3 months now, and we're only halfway across the Atlantic Ocean. We've just been hit by our 3rd hurricane a few days ago, which blew us way backwards, way off course.
I just love the idea that nobody had done it before. Nobody had gone around the world entirely by human power, and it promised to be a great way to explore some of these areas that you'd never otherwise visit.
I think there's a few things that drew me to this expedition. Part of it is I wanted to undertake a big adventure. I really wanted to push myself and see what I could achieve for my own interest and curiosity.
Oh, look at you, Barbara. Oh, you like that, don't you?
Another part was an interest in the ocean. My background is in science, and I've always been fascinated with the ocean environment. And there's really no other way to experience that kind of intimacy with the ocean than if you were to spend 5 months slowly crossing it.
The expedition took 2 years in total. That was starting from Vancouver, ending in Vancouver. 43,000 kilometers in total around the world. 5 different modes of human-powered transportation: canoeing, rowing, skiing, cycling, of course. The longest leg was crossing the Atlantic Ocean, which took 5 months, just Julie and myself in the rowboat. Starting out in the expedition, I was with a friend. His name was Tim Harvey. From North America, we crossed the Bering Sea, which is about a 400-kilometer stretch of ocean. And then once we got into Siberia, that was even tougher, just because of the extreme temperatures we're dealing with.
Today is a freezing, typical day in Chukotka. It seems to snow and blizzard all the time, with minus 35, minus 40-degree temperatures. It's chilly, it's freezing, and this is our home now. This is where we live.
And unfortunately, things just didn't work out, and cracks started forming in our relationship. And in Siberia, we ended up traveling separately, and at that point I was alone for almost 4 months. Fortunately, Julie was able to join me in Moscow.
The cycling leg, it was pretty fast-paced because we had a deadline to make in order to cross the Atlantic Ocean, so we had to keep to a pretty rigorous schedule. At the same time, we traveled through a lot of beautiful areas in France and Germany and Austria and Spain and Portugal, so it was very pleasant and scenic too. When we arrived in Lisbon, we purchased a rowboat that we bought off the internet. It was a second-hand boat, so we had a lot of work to do to get it ready for the ocean. Finally, we got the boat prepared, and then we had to fill it with everything we needed for the ocean crossing. 5 months of food, and because of course we're exerting so much energy, it's burning twice as many calories as we normally would. We didn't have a support boat, so if we just forgot something, we'd have to go without, so it was really important to be properly prepared.
You're doing a lot of rowing. You get up in the morning and well, we're taking shifts all the time. So one person's on the oars, one is inside eating, sleeping, whatever. And we're doing about 10 to 12 hours each behind the oars. But you become more relaxed as the weeks wear on. You start realizing that, you know, this boat is seaworthy, and your mind just sort of accepts this new world that is now your home.
That was like a foot away from us. I opened the door and I looked inside and I saw that all I saw was the side of the freighter.
2 days into the trip, we were almost hit by a freighter. Just a big wave and this wall of steel behind it. And it was actually the wave off the front of the freighter that pushed us to the side.
It was heading straight into our bow, and it just missed our bow by a foot.
I had a lot of fears when we started this journey. The biggest worry was the Atlantic Ocean. It's a huge crossing, almost 10,000 kilometers. My biggest worry was the weather. Hurricane Vince came right over us. At the worst of it, we were in waves that were about 50 feet high with wind speeds that were well over 100 kilometers an hour.
To protect our heads, we've actually fastened helmets, which we've made from pantyhose, and we've stuffed the interior with clothing. And so if we do end up banging our heads against the wall, it will actually protect us somewhat. Land ho! 120 days out at sea, and behind me is land.
When we finally reached land, it was everything we imagined. It was tropical, fresh fruits and vegetables, and good foods were all there.
But except we couldn't walk. That was the only problem.
Yeah, you can't walk. After you've been in the boat for that long, you literally can barely walk.
Well, I think it definitely made our relationship that much stronger. When we went on this trip, we were engaged, and I guess you could say it was the ultimate litmus test. I mean, either things were going to go well or they were going to fall apart, and so we got married, and so obviously they went quite well.
The boat is tiny, and basically a way you can replicate the situation at home is find your best friend or your significant other and go under the kitchen table and sit there for 5 months, which is pretty much what it's like. I mean, your world is that limited, and the most important thing, of course, is having a strong relationship to start with and being able to communicate if problems do arise, being able to work your way over it. Overall, I think we were quite fortunate in the fact that we made it to shore and we still loved each other.